He's looking at their cell phone.
Okay, Wade, go ahead and start the meeting.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks very much, Christy. So welcome, everyone. This is the Village of Chagrin Falls Board of Zoning Appeals meeting of May 26th, 2020. I assume this is the first time we've ever had a BZA meeting where we're all separated and doing it virtually. A couple thank yous are in order. Thanks to Christy Holmes, who is handling the maneuvering of the technology. Thank you very much, Christy. Thanks to our law director and to Rob for being available, and Harry as well. Thank you all very much. In case, I'm Wade Frick. I'm the chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. If you think that I'm losing it because I'm wearing a vest and it's 91 or whatever it is outside, I'm actually in my basement and it's about 40 down here. So in case, I didn't want people looking and thinking, what the hell's that guy doing in 90-degree temperature? So that's what I'm doing. Thank you, and bear with us. I know Christy's a veteran at this and is great at maneuvering around. We're going to follow the same format that we typically follow each time, and we'll plow through this and get through this and make sure we have a good, successful hearing. Anyone who's on the line or who's joining us, if you have something to say, rest assured you will have an opportunity to say what you came on to say. So we will absolutely take care of that. With that, we'll proceed with our agenda. The first items are approval of minutes. And we'll tell you we have three previous sets of minutes that we have not approved. The first are the minutes from the October 22nd, 2019 meeting. I have not made any changes, nor have I seen any from anyone else on the board. Are there any changes that anyone wants to make to the October 22nd, 2019 minutes?
No.
No,
Okay, with that, we'll take a motion to approve the minutes as typed then.
so move.
And
Who's it?
that's Lisa
Second.
Kramer moving.
Yes,
Second. Was it By Kramer? Jim.
I'm sorry, who moved?
Lisa.
Okay, and second,
Second.
Jim Holdren, second. Okay, Rob, can you roll call, please? Roll vote.
Sure. Freshman Johnson,
Aye.
Frick,
Aye.
Holdren,
Aye.
Kramer,
Aye.
Rocky.
Oh, he's muted.
Andrew, can you hear us?
I just asked him to unmute.
It keeps like autumn staying. Still
Yeah.
muted. I'm trying to fix it. Hold on.
We can hear you.
You're on.
We can hear you.
There, abstain.
Okay. Good, thank you. So next up would be the minutes from November 26, 2019. I have no changes to those minutes. Does anyone else on the board have changes?
Nope.
No.
Okay, motion to approve the minutes as typed.
Motion to approve the minutes as typed by
Okay,
Rachel
that's
Johnson.
Rachel, and I'm just saying the names for the audio so the minutes will be prepared appropriately. So Rachel, your motion, second, anybody?
Second by Lisa Kramer.
All right, thank you. Roll, please, Rob.
Frick,
Aye.
Holdren,
Aye.
Kramer,
Aye.
Rocky,
Abstain.
Freshman Johnson.
Aye.
And I'll note just for the record, I assume Andrew is abstaining because he wasn't a member of the board at this time.
Correct.
All right, and the last set of minutes are February 25, 2020. I do not have any changes or additions, amendments to those minutes. Does anybody else have anything? Okay, motion to approve the February 25th, 2020 minutes as written.
Moved by Kramer.
Second, anyone?
Second by Holdren.
Great, thanks. Rob, roll.
Holdren,
Aye.
Kramer,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Freshman Johnson,
Aye.
Frick.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So we've got those 3 items off. Mr. Law Director, do you want to do swearing in before each individual application?
I do. As each person speaks, before they speak, we will ask them to be sworn.
Okay. So if you've never attended one of our meetings, you certainly have never attended one virtually, but we'll run it the same way as I mentioned. The way we'll do this is we have 4 applications before us. We hear them in the order they were received. What we'll do is I'll ask Rob to give us sort of the procedural background on the application, what happened, why did we get to this point, and what are the issues of the code that are at play. Rob will do that. Then we'll ask the applicant to make a presentation, an applicant or applicant's representative to make a presentation. And as just noted, we'll ask, as each person is taught, before they talk, the law director will swear you in. We'll have a presentation by the applicant. The board members will feel free to ask questions during and after the presentation. And then we will turn it through the magic of Christy working the technology. We'll turn it over to anyone who is joining us listening. I typically ask those who would like to speak in favor of the application to speak first, and anyone who would like to speak in opposition or neutrally perhaps will have an opportunity then to speak thereafter. And again, the board may ask questions throughout that part of the process as well. We will take on every application, we'll take a motion in the affirmative and then vote yes or no on that. So we will proceed in that manner. Christy, and you have the ability, I think if anybody's asking a question, you have the ability to flag that for us. Is that correct?
That's true. Any attendee that would like to speak when they choose to has the ability to raise their hand through the software, and I can then allow them to talk and unmute them. So if a hand is raised through the Zoom platform, I will know that you'd like to speak, and I'll allow you to.
Okay. Great, thanks, Christy. So all that being said, the first application before us is that of Dennis and Laura Bauer, 60 South Franklin Street. Rob, I turn it over to you. Could you please give us the background that it looks like you're able to project on the screen for us here as well?
Yes, and I also want to start out by saying we have quite a few documents for each one of these 4 projects. I'm going to attempt to bring them up as we start to digest each project. If you want me to toggle between different documents, just let me know, and I can do that, and the screen will show what we need to show. Starting off for this project, 60 South Franklin Street, the applicant, Mr. and Mrs. Dennis Bauer, or Mr. Dennis Bauer and Miss Laura O'Neill. They're proposing to build 4 accessory structures in their rear yard, which consist of a detached garage, a potting and garden shed, a patio, pergola, and a garden wall. This is in the R150 zoning district at permanent parcel number 932-03014. They are before us today for a total of 4 code sections that require variance. The first is section 1125-04A1, the area, yard, and height regulations for accessory buildings. This pertains to detached garage size. The minimum interior dimensions of a detached garage shall be 20 feet in length and 19 feet in width as a minimum. The proposed garage is 20 feet in length and only 14 feet in width. So the proposed garage is 5 feet under the minimum required width. The next variance is section 1125-04A2, which is also the accessory structures, detached garages. And it says the detached garages for each lot shall not exceed 700 square feet in total area of the structure. And the calculated square footage, well, that's for all of the accessory structures together on the lot. And when you add all four of these, as well as the driveway, the all accessory structures in the rear lot add up to 968.25 square feet. So this exceeds our code requirement by 268.25 square feet. The third variance involved is the minimum distance of the detached garages and accessory buildings from the rear lot line. The code requires 20 feet plus the average front yard setback of the adjoining lots having street frontage on the street opposite the front line of the through lot. The average front yard setback is 12.75 feet. Therefore, the minimum rear lot line setback required would be a total of 32.75 feet. The proposed garage structure in the back has a setback of 14.5 feet, which is under the required setback requirement by 18.25 feet. Also, the proposed potting and garden shed building has a setback of 15 feet, which is under the required setback by 17.75 feet. The fourth and final variance is to section 1148.05B. Fences, walls, and hedges are permitted in residential districts, requiring the height, the maximum height of 6 feet for these structures, for fences, walls, and hedges. The proposed brick garden wall is 8 feet in height, which is over the minimum or the maximum height requirement by 2 feet. So that's a summary of the four the variances we have. And there you go. You have any questions on that, on any of that information?
I think I'm okay. Rest of the board, any questions there?
Rob, you talked about calculating the driveway as part of the accessory or the excess footage of the accessory structures. My understanding was that all or part of that driveway was going to be gone, or is that a different driveway?
It's going to be the driveway that's, it's an existing driveway. Part of that is going to remain, I believe. I'll have to refer
You know, if
back and
that's
check.
calculated into the excess, we probably should know about it.
I will have to verify that, but I'll do that
Okay.
as we start to bring the maps up.
Okay.
Okay. All that being said, thank you, Rob, for that background. I guess at this point, we would turn it over to the applicant for its presentation. And before someone speaks, we'll have the law director swear in the speaker. So who do we have who will be speaking on behalf of the application?
Dale, I have Bill Childs coming. Would you
Sure.
like all three at one time or one at a time?
I would do one at a time because I can only see one. Well, actually, no, I take that back. You could put all three of them on and
Okay,
I'd be
I
able to
have,
see them if you add them.
if my list is correct, I have Bill Childs, I'm promoting to a panelist, and the Bowers, and Mrs. Burt, promote to a panelist. If there are any other members that are in attendance, I see another hand. I will promote you, Brenda Anthony, promoted to a panelist.
Okay, so we have Virginia Burt, Bill Childs, Laura Bauer, Brenda Anthony, and who's the other one?
That's the extent of,
Okay. All right, so Laura Bauer, I can't see. She needs to and Brenda Anthony, they need to
Yep.
Get their video going. So that
I've
does, I
requested
know
the
that's
Bowers
not
to
Laura,
unmute.
but that would be,
okay.
who's on the screen for Laura Bauer?
This is Dennis Bauer.
Dennis, okay, gotcha. All right, so I'm gonna ask each of you to raise your right hand. And if you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals tonight, please say I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay, I verified all four have been sworn in.
Okay, thank you. So I'll turn it, I assume you're all tag teaming. We don't have audience participation yet. You're all participating in the presentation, is that right?
That's
Dennis
correct.
Bauer, basically viewing, but I'll answer questions if I have to.
Okay, well, I will turn it to whoever you would like to make the presentation, and you can chime in accordingly.
Good evening, everybody. It's Virginia Burt. I'm going to start off. And so first of all, thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for that, putting that up, Rob, because this is really the opportunity to be able to look at this in its entirety. I think the first piece is we have this gorgeous heritage Italianate house. It, of course, is a signature house in your beautiful village. And I'll just say that the idea here is to create an Italianate garden that goes with it. So the first piece is, what is an Italianate garden? I think more than anything else is that it has an axial geometry, that it has a vista, that it has geometrically patterned beds, that it has, it's designed to be inspiring all year round, that it has a water feature, it has steps, it leads you down into literally a series of green rooms. So I think the first piece is, and to answer some of the questions in relation particularly to the items on the agenda. The first piece, and there was a question, and I'll just answer that about the driveway. There is an existing driveway that extends all the way from Walnut Street to the accessory or small existing garage that used to be in this diagram. It's called the terrace. There's a terrace in the upper right-hand corner or the northeast corner of the back garden, just so that people can see that. Of course, I'm pointing at my screen, which of course doesn't help you in the audience. But
Virginia, you can actually draw on the screen and we can see it. Are you working from an iPad or a computer?
I'm on an iPad.
Okay, in the lower left, you should see a circle on a pencil that says Rob Screen.
Oh, you mean this one?
If you push that, then you can use your finger or pen.
Can you see that I am drawing something?
Not yet.
No.
Hang on, let me try this. Pan, arrow, highlighter. Try this. Highlighter.
No.
Nope.
Hey, Virginia, what about this is what she's talking about? I just drew it. This is Bill Childs. This is where the
Oh,
old.
thank you, Bill. So there's the existing driveway. And I'll answer one of the questions about the existing drive. And one of the things I'll mention, if you do the statistics, one of the pieces is we currently show that the proposed accessory structures are over what would be allowable under the bylaw. However, what we are doing is actually reducing the overall amount of space that is already taken up by the accessory structure of the existing driveway. The existing driveway is 1,178 square feet. We're removing that. And as you can see, the proposed accessory structures, when you add all of those together, we're at 1081.25 now. So I'm just saying the existing driveway is considered an accessory structure. It is over your amount. We're actually reducing it by 9% less by the accessory structures that we show here. I think then the other part, you can see the strong axial relationship from the existing house all the way down into the garden. So you step down from the existing house across the existing porch onto, and I'm going to call it a bit of an overlook. We have a pair of steps that divide and take you down onto a lawn terrace. The little bit of Italian there, the terrazza sul prato, or the lawn terrace, the sunny terrace, sunny grass terrace. Then you step down again into a garden that is a strolling garden, left and right, a beautiful water feature, and you step under into the shade of the pergola. All of that is to say that the pergola, once you're under the pergola, there's also a brick wall at the edge. And this is the wall that we're speaking of, that is in the letter was shown at 8 feet. We actually have dropped the height of that to 7 feet to align with the lintels of the garage, which you'll see in the sections in a moment.
Is it possible for you to circle or do something else to show exactly where I see the green line you've put in there? but where the wall is where the green line ends, or is there a way you can
That's
circle it?
correct.
That's
Yep,
the
that
wall.
is
right
it.
there. That's the wall.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so the wall, and I think that the next piece and what I'll mention about just by getting rid of that driveway, we've actually decreased the amount of coverage in the back garden. Then the next piece is how do we define, and again, this is a through lot. We go from all the way from Franklin all the way back to Walnut Street. We have moved our garage and potting shed. Those are the two white rectangles. Bill, if you could just show what those are. Those two have been moved to be set back now 20 feet from the property line, which takes it back slightly 6 feet behind the adjacent house of 14'3". But what that does is create a consistency of streetscape all the way along Walnut. And it gives, and by having the brick wall, the two buildings, what we're able to do is create a consistent architectural theme along that streetscape.
Was there a previous garage or no?
No,
Okay.
well, sorry, the previous garage
in the front.
is all the way into the interior of the property.
Right, okay,
Yeah, this is the interior. This is the existing garage.
right, in the front. Mhm.
Right.
And that remains, obviously.
Correct.
Okay.
Accessible from the front, yes.
Is it currently accessible from the back as well through that driveway? Is that what the purpose? Okay.
That is correct.
It's currently a drive-through garage. Part of what we're proposing is to close off the back garage door that's facing Walnut Street on the existing garage. Removing that entire driveway that leads to it and removing the garage door on the back side. So it would only be accessed from the front as it already is.
Okay.
I think if we could go to the elevations, which would be the next page after this, I believe, if I could ask, I think it's Rob that needs to,
Which one do you want to see?
the one with the colored elevations, please.
Okay, let me get to that.
Should be the next page after this. Yeah, there we go. You got it.
Is that okay, or do I need to zoom in or out?
If you could move over to the right to look at elevation AA first, please. Thank you. So elevation AA, what that shows you is the two garages in the wall and how we have created a niche detail in the wall so that two things happen. The first one is the niche. I mean, by dropping the wall to 7 feet, what that does is actually align the top of the wall with the two lintels, the stone lintels above the doors of the garage. So again, architectural consistency, the ability to unify and create, and for lack of a better term, a catcher's mitt, both for the streetscape as one walks by, so the public gets something beautiful, as well as the interior of the garden. You can see that the pergola, or otherwise known as an arbor, on the other beyond in that in this little step. And,
Virginia, did you just say that was 7 feet? The wall is 7 feet high?
yes, we dropped it from 8 down to 7.
So that variance is only for 1 foot, not 2.
For 1 foot, that is correct.
And while we're on that, what would be the impact of making that 6 feet and not needing a variance request for that particular feature?
It will shrink. I'm going to say it this way. There's two things that happen. The first one is it will no longer align with the quality of and the symmetry of the door lintels above the garage doors. So as soon as we start to do that, there is not a continuous line there. Number one. Number two, it will diminish the size and scale of the niche that is proposed, and suddenly it will look out of scale. On the inside, the other part that happens is that because of the sloping garden, it creates there's an opportunity when we're talking about Italianate gardens, the true axial relationship from the upper area of the porch looking down into the garden. It will really diminish the ability for that garden to feel its strength as a, and I'm going to say it this way, as a catcher's mitt. And it's literally the end of the vista for the people who live inside. So there are a number of architectural design reasons why one would do that and why it's important to keep it at 7 feet.
Why was it originally 8 feet?
We hadn't finished the design of the garage doors yet. And when we first went in, we refined the garage doors, and at 7 feet, that alignment was important. Let's say it that way.
Okay.
I just had one comment too. I think Chagrin Falls is a very pedestrian-oriented community. And I think these type of design elements, to get them correct for pedestrians walking by is important, because if it's lower to 6 foot, then you're basically almost having the ability, if you're 6 foot or taller, to look over the wall, versus it should be a piece that you can feel the height and the scale of it as you walk past. So I think it distracts or doesn't really solidify the design if it's too low, especially from a pedestrian scale.
Bill, I think if we could also show, so knowing the height of the wall here, if we could go down to the elevation that is just below this one, Rob, if I could ask for you to just scroll down and maybe shrink out just a little bit. So you can see, to Bill's point, you can see what 7 feet looks like in relation to a person out on the street. It is not what I'll say, overbearing, and it gives us an opportunity to have that beautiful niche as well. Because as soon as you shrink that, it becomes out of scale, I think is the part that I want to be able to emphasize. Brenda, do you want to show speak to the two garden sheds and speak to their, if we go to the next, 2 more drawings, please, Rob, I believe.
Certainly. As Virginia mentioned, the style of the existing home, it is a historically significant Italianate home. We wanted to represent that in the accessory structures. So they have some of that Italianate characteristic, tall, slender structure, tall, slender windows. The windows are proportionate in scale to the ones on the existing home. A hip roof. The roof will be slate to match the existing home. Brick exterior. We have, could you go to maybe the elevations of the buildings?
Is that up or down, do you know?
Down. Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is. Back up. One
sheet back.
There we go.
That's good. Okay.
Over the doors and windows, we've done a small pediment that is similar in character to the ones that are on the existing home. The idea here was just to do a structure that complements the existing Italianate home, but without all of the decorative details that the existing home would have, because it wouldn't be appropriate for these small garden type structures to have all the brackets and everything that's on the home, just enough to complement the existing home.
How did you arrive at the final
I
square?
think one of the
footage
other
of
things that
structure?
I'll just mention is.
Wait, what did you say?
I'm sorry, I said, how did you arrive at the final dimensions of the shed and the garage structure?
The two structures are nearly identical, as you can see. The code, the zoning does require a garage to be 19 feet in width. However, this is not the primary garage for the home. The home already has a 2-car garage. This is just an accessory garage. We wanted to keep it, again, Italianate in character, are tall and slender. If you're familiar with the existing home, or Rob can advance one more sheet, you can see we have an elevation of the back of the home. Very tall, very slender. And this, there is a height limit in the code as well. So we went as tall as we were allowed. And we had to keep it tight in order to maintain the tall, slender appearance. So the proportions are relative to the character of the existing home.
Is the intention to park a car in the garage?
Yes, you can fit a small car in the garage.
Has ARB looked at these drawings?
Yes, they have, and we did
Yes.
receive an enthusiastic preliminary approval. It was very-
Yes, preliminary approval was granted on February 18th of 2020 at their meeting.
Rob, I got a question.
Sure.
As far as the distance, the rear yard setback, we're using 14.5 feet, but the fence or wall, I guess, is within that. Is there a reason why that is not being considered because it is a fence?
Correct. Yeah, the setback for the fence is different than any is different than the other structures and for a building. Let me refresh. Let me look into that question here for a second.
I was also curious while you're looking at that, a similar topic, that the wall, I mean, I didn't see anything of variance about the fence, which is really a wall, which has no, there always needed to be, a certain amount of visibility in a fence in our requirement. You can't have it solid, but does this not qualify for that?
I don't believe so. We did address that when we did the review,
Okay.
and I could go back and find that exact reasoning for that.
I don't know if maybe Dale had some insight on this wall not being a fence. I would have thought. they
Yeah,
would've had to get a-
fences have to have 30% airspace or, to let light through. That's why we do the shadow box fencing, right? When you see the
Right.
6-foot privacy fences, they're that shadow box, not a standard board-on-board fence.
Right, so how does this one not
Right.
have that requirement?
I'm looking up the regulation for walls because I think it's looked at differently.
I see.
I'm
Okay,
looking that up now for you.
Okay.
we don't get many walls.
No.
Well, it's an important thing in an Italianate garden that they actually have garden walls as part of
Yeah.
it. So
Mhm.
we're
And the
looking to
wall-
be historically
yeah.
accurate.
The wall is not the whole way, it's only,
Between the two buildings.
Between the two sheds.
Correct.
okay.
So the def-
Zoom out on this picture, can you zoom out, whoever's controlling this?
what would you like to do? Zoom out?
Just zoom out a little.
It's okay, puppy.
You're talking about the dog or the picture?
There you go.
And I do have an answer regarding the fence or wall. It is under 114802. A definition of a wall is a solid barrier constructed of wood, masonry, or other material. And they consider a solid fence is considered a wall. Now this could, because it's made of masonry, is considered a wall. So we treated it as a wall when we looked at the entire zoning review.
Okay. And it meets all code.
Yes, with the exception of the height.
Right, okay, makes sense.
The only issue with that wall, it relates to the extra foot above the required 6 feet.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And actually, it's at 114807, although it says walls greater than 6 feet in height or in excess of 100 square feet will be subject to review by the ARB. Design and construction of such walls shall be approved by ARB in consideration of the factors of safety and visual impact. So presumably the ARB has already opined on the wall itself.
Did they opine on it at 8 feet or 7 feet?
They opined on 7 feet and they loved it.
Okay, okay.
Sorry, we're jumping in with questions. I don't want to throw you off your
Right.
presentation. Do you need to, do you want to continue? Do you
We were on the
pausing for
sheds.
us?
Right, we were on the sheds.
Virginia, did you have anything additional you wanted to say about the site, or should I discuss just a little bit of work we're doing at the existing garage?
I think you should just proceed with the garage and speak to the detailing and how we're responding to the existing massing.
If you could also, while you're touching on that, touch on the location of each, the garage and the garden shed. I mean, why can't they be pushed, can the whole thing be pushed 5 feet or 8 feet or, something closer to the house, and how you came up with the scaling that you did?
Virginia, I think that comes down to the gardens and such, if you want to talk a little bit
Correct.
about.
So
Portions.
this is all about a series of proportions. So literally what we're looking to do is create the invitation down into the garden. And if I put the sheds any further to the east or into the garden, what begins to do is it starts to foreshorten that overall axial relationship. The more you foreshorten it, it creates a disadvantage to the overall visual quality of it. The lawn terrace is designed in sacred geometry, so it's using sacred geometry proportions of 1 to 1.618 that are found in nature, and it gives you a series of garden rooms. If I start to push the 2 buildings into the middle of it, well, it all becomes about those 2 buildings instead of it being about a garden. What we're looking to do is create a series of spaces, if you will, both entering from Walnut and also as you experience them looking from the inside of the house. And that happens in all seasons. By foreshortening that or moving those closer, it begins to destroy the integrity of the overall series of experiences and spaces that we have there.
I'd also like to comment that if you pull that back anymore, you start to lose the essence of the streetscape. This street, you have house, then you have basically a hole or a void, and then you have house. So this basically is a place marker for that. Typically, there would probably be a house here. And so being the historic district, we felt it would be a good solution to be an Italian home, to do this Italian garden, and then do these little sheds that help keep that streetscape, which I think is really important in the historic district. And I also think it's important because it gives a unique kind of feature that kind of ties in with a lot of the nice historic houses, trying to keep the architecture and the detailing. And I still think it's an experience of a pedestrian walking through the town to see this neat Italian garage shed and this wall with this niche and this possible sculpture in it.
Thank you.
Bill, you stole the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say void in the streetscape, and also the lovely espalier trees that Virginia has added onto the outside of the wall adds to that experience for the pedestrian. In addition to these structures, we're just doing a little bit of minor work over at the existing garage that I mentioned previously, where we're removing that entire existing driveway that Virginia has replaced with this, we call it the meander, this natural pathway, and removing the back garage door and just adding a small man door at the back. That's really the extent of the architectural impact.
Last thing I'd like to comment on is I really don't think this project would endanger the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. Actually, I think it would be inspiring to them when they're taking their walks, and give them gratification of the architecture and the gardens.
I have I have a question for Virginia.
Sure.
When I did the zoning review on this map that's on the screen now, I measured out the setback distances and I based the zoning review letter on that. And it looked like the setback from the line to the garage is about 14 foot, 10 inches or 14 and a half feet
Right.
in this distance when I measured that to scale. And then I looked at the potting and garden shed and measured that at 15 feet on this version. When I just looked at the colored version that was submitted with the variance, it looks like, and I haven't had a chance to do the scale measurement, but it looks like from the property line back that the 20-foot rear setback is maintained for both structures. Was there an alteration or moving those buildings back a little?
Yes, we moved them back for several reasons. I think that the first one was, it was an early drawing that we had sent into you, and as we did design development, we were able to go back to the wall. The roof was shown, and we had measured to the roof line instead of the actual face. And so then we also moved it back so we could be sure that a car could park between the sidewalk and the single car garage in case it was waiting there just for a temporary moment before it went into the garage. So we just wanted to be sure that we had that space, and also it allowed us to respond to your request in your letter to move it back.
And for clarification, the way I interpret it, it does meet a 20-foot yard setback. However, when you have a through lot that goes between street frontages, it's the requirement for rear lot line is 20 feet plus the average front yard setback of the adjoining lots having street frontage on the street. So the requirement of a rear lot line of 32.75 feet still stands, although the amount of variance required is less for the three structures, for the garage, the potting shed, and the pergola. It would instead of being at the 14 or 15 foot level, it's now back to 20 foot. But the overall requirement is still 32.75 feet.
So it's still, how do we view that in terms of a variance?
It's still the same section, so I'm gonna get you.
No, but I mean, in terms of the amount of the variance that's being requested.
Right. I'm calculating that right now.
What's the, you said the garages and the potting shed, they're 19 feet long? Is that correct?
Let's see here.
They're
The,
20,
They're
Go ahead.
20.
20 feet long by 14 feet wide.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out where exactly that 30, well, let's call it 33 feet to make it easy, would be on this line, and that's basically 3/4 of the way through the garage. Right, if we come back another,
That's right.
13 feet.
looks like it'd be roughly half.
Yeah.
So it's really a 13-foot. It needs to be 13 feet further back in order to meet the
12.75.
13.75.
12.75, I think.
12.75. Well, that's
Yeah.
average.
Yes,
Is that right? Okay.
yes.
So they're requesting a 12.75 foot variance for both structures.
I think that's right.
Yep, I'm writing that now. 75. Yeah, it looks like it's. So it's actually, the potting shed looks like it's just over 20 foot, like 20 and a half foot from the rear setback line.
It's 20'3" on the northwest corner of that potting shed.
20 foot. Okay. Okay. So the amount of variance for rear yard setback would be 12.75 feet. And that would cover both structures. It's a little
One's
greater.
a little closer than the other, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
little less for the potting shed, but for the garage, it'd be 12.75 foot.
gotcha.
I think it really does show, and I think that the important part is if you zoom out just slightly, if you could, Rob.
Yes,
You know, again, it's back to Bill's important point. It really does create the unity of the streetscape as you move along that. As soon as you start moving those garages even further back, there's no longer a relationship of architecture to street or to sidewalk. So I am aware that we are indeed asking for variance, but it's for I'm going to call it literally, it weaves in into the tapestry of your historic district, and then now it allows us to be able to create continuity as you walk along that experience as a pedestrian.
So in terms of the actual area of accessory structures, if we calculate in the removal of the part of the existing driveway, what does that do to the amount of excess lot coverage?
So the first piece is it's 9% less coverage than what is today. So what we're saying is today's existing drive is 1,178 square feet. The total proposed structure is 1081. So the difference there, let me just do the math. I did not have, I did the percentage rather than the math. So I apologize there. Just get my calculator. My lights are off, excuse me. Getting dark in here. Sorry about that. So the difference, 1081.25 minus 1178. So we are actually 96.75 square feet less coverage. The allowable, so knowing that the allowable accessory structure area is 700. Today's 1178 is significantly over that,
Right.
and we're reducing it.
Right.
So there's more green space.
Okay.
I apologize to the applicants. We've been asking lots of questions. I didn't mean to get you off of your presentation. Do you have more that you'd like to present, or is this flowing the way you're happy with, that we're just asking you questions?
Brenda, do you want to speak just to be able to show that elevation of a doorway to show how it aligns with the windows, and again, that it was very positively approved or received by the Architectural Review Board.
Are you talking the garage and potting shed or at the main house?
At the main house. I just think, I don't know whether that people understood what might have been said there.
Right. So that would be, I think maybe about 4 or 5 pages past this. If Rob could advance the. Keep going. I believe one more page. This is just a little drawing showing in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see where this is the back facade of the existing house. The bottom left-hand corner shows where there was previously a garage door that we're removing and just replacing with a man door in line with one of the existing windows above. That's really the extent of what we're doing at the main house, but it's just a reminder that we're eliminating that drive-through garage and all of that excessive driveway that currently exists in the back of the home in order to create this garden environment.
I think that concludes our presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
board, we've been asking questions throughout. Are there any additional questions that have come up that we haven't had a chance to ask yet?
I did have a point to answer Jim Holdren's earlier question about rear yard setback to the wall versus the garage and exotic shed. There is different setback requirements for a wall than there is for the building. So we use the building setback when we evaluated the building, and the wall does meet the setback requirements for a wall.
And I have
I'm
one
sorry,
additional
I need to
question.
interrupt. Someone has some background noise. It sounds like wind. So if all participants who are not speaking could please mute and only unmute when you're the speaker. That might help with some interference. Thank you.
I have one additional question. That was probably me because there's a fan running. I turned it off though. Why don't they have to have a variance from 3.5 feet? Because it's technically, it's a street adjacent wall. Even though it's in the back of their property, it's adjacent to the front of another street. I mean, why is that different?
I have to look at what you're referring to.
So when you look at, we define front yard fences and walls and hedges have to not exceed 3.5 feet. But, it backs up. So my question is more kind of a logistics question. They back up to another street. We
Right.
don't define it as, so, why are we saying that this is actually a 7, they have to be 6 feet? Because it's technically their backyard, but it's everybody else's front yard on that same street.
It's evaluated on the property where it sits. So if it's a rear
Okay.
yard fence, then as long as it meets the rear yard setbacks and there's no other code language that regulates that further for a through lot, then we go by the requirement for the rear lot line, for the rear yard height. And
Okay, thank you. That clears that up for me.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I guess as far as the wall again, Rob or Harry, like what does the code say, like as far as the distance? Because we're not even evaluating this. I mean, could it be 2 feet from the property line and extend the entire length of the property? Like,
I'm
what
looking
limits
up
the
that
wall?
code section right now for you.
Jim, the wall in the rear yard is, that could be treated as a privacy fence, which has to be 3 feet off the property line.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions, board? All right, Christy, is there anybody in the audience in the waiting room who would like to speak in favor of the application?
I'm waiting to see if there are any hands. No hands raised from attendees.
Okay, is there anybody who would like to speak in opposition or neutrally to the application?
I'm waiting for attendees to use their raise hand function if they would like to speak. There are no raised hands.
And Rob, did we receive any letters or anything from neighbors?
No feedback that I received.
Okay. Final questions to the board, from the board. Anything else that anyone needs?
Board members, if I could just say one thing, we did send this application to the village engineer. He reviewed it for compliance. There was no issues with him. And also the Bowers did a consolidation because this was 3 lots and now it is 1 lot.
4 lots.
4 lots. Wow.
4 lots. Thank you.
Lisa, are you?
Hey, wait,
who's
I got
the-
one.
Oh,
Sorry,
Jim,
wait.
Jim.
I was just looking for, I saw it at some point, but what is the lot coverage now? I know they don't need a variance, it's way under the 24%, but does anybody know what that?
Yeah, I've got it right here. The site stats are in the application, so not this drawing, Rob, but the colored one that's green.
Page 1.
Page 1, please. Yep, there we go. So in the upper left-hand corner, the site stats, there our total lot coverage is 15.6% versus the allowable of 24.
Good, thank you. Okay, board, we ready for a motion?
Yes. I move, and you want to explain that we are always in the affirmative?
Yeah, I mentioned at the outset, but just to reiterate, we are going to, board member will make a motion in the affirmative, and then each board member will vote yes or no to that motion.
Wait, this is Christy. I
Yes,
need to interject. We have one phone-in listener, and I need to ask them verbally if they have any, they don't have the option to raise their hand. So I need to ask them verbally if they have any comments.
sure, thanks,
So
Christy.
there's one person at number 216-272-8317. I'm going to allow you to talk. You may stay muted or you're free to speak.
Christie, before that person speaks, we need to get their name and their address, and then I need to swear them in.
Okay, so if that person would care to speak, please identify yourself. No, they're not choosing to speak. I
Okay,
just needed to give them the option. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Christy. Okay, so then we will entertain a motion in the affirmative, and the board will vote yes or no on that motion.
I move that we approve the variance requests at 60 South Main Street with respect to 1125.04 A1, 2, and 3, and 1148.05B. With respect to the variances under 1125, A1 refers to the width and length of the garage. And this is a garage which, because of the nature of the design, is going to be 5 feet narrower than the width that's prescribed in 1125.04 A1. I think with respect to the scale of the project and the desire to mass and make proportionate the two structures, and the fact that it's an accessory garage, that's an appropriate variance request. I think with respect to 11.2504A2, we're looking at a lot coverage decrease, even though we're in excess of what's allowed by code. It's actually a decrease because of the removal of part of the driveway, the creation of these structures. So it's actually a net reduction in the lot coverage over green space by 96.75 square feet. And with respect to 1125.04A3, we're looking at an approximate 12.75 foot variance request. The required variance is 32.75 feet, and we're looking at approximately a 12.75 foot variance in keeping with where these structures are going to be located to create the scale and the consistency of the garden. With respect to 1148.05B, we're looking at a wall, which is it's going to be 1 foot variance over the 6 foot height requirement. And that's what the applicant is requesting. With respect to these variance requests, the variance request with respect to lot coverage and the rear yard setback are relatively substantial. The wall height is not substantial. And the size of the garage is less than what's prescribed by code. The essential character of the neighborhood would be altered, but I believe would be altered to the benefit of the neighborhood by granting these variance requests. I don't believe that the variance would adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. The design of this garden is an addition to what was intended when the property owner purchased the property. So perhaps they may have been aware of the zoning restrictions. It's not clear. If they are to build a garden of this size and integrity, these variance requests would allow it to be what the property owner intends and would be a benefit to the neighborhood. The spirit of the zoning code is met by allowing this garden to proceed, this garden construction to proceed, and it's based on circumstances of the owner wanting to enhance the property. Certainly, this is not a required change to the property, but in terms of what's being requested and what's being proposed, I think the granting of the variances, variance requests are a benefit. It's not a self-created hardship, or I guess the other requirements relative to a use variance are not relevant here. So for those reasons, I'm moving that the Board of Zoning Appeals grant the variances as requested.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion. This is Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel. Rob, can you call the roll, please?
Sure, Rocky?
So I'm gonna go with yes on granting the variance. I believe that they're doing a great job to improve the look of the street and the property. They are taking on a fair amount of financial burden and project. I believe that in terms of 1148.05, the fence, we're getting them an extra foot to adhere to the aesthetic design, but it does give them a slight bit more property, being over 6 into their backyard. And I can situations of people walking and looking into your backyard, and I'm going to keep it short.
Andrew, thanks. You broke up for some of what you said. I think we got enough on the record, but just be aware. I don't know if it's something with your headset but broke up for a little bit of that.
Yeah, I can repeat myself. I was trying to keep it short in case I broke up, but I mean, I was stating that that really when it comes to the fence, or the wall, that's my biggest concern, and that they're only exceeding it by a 1 foot increment, and it does make a change to basically the aesthetics of the property. And because it does back up to a street which is pretty well traveled, I can understand the frustration or the feeling that having people peering over your wall into your backyard as you're trying to enjoy your evening is not the greatest situation. So I think it's both helpful for them and for everybody walking by.
Okay, thanks. Rob, continue, please.
Freshman Johnson?
So I love the presentation. I love the concept. You have a beautiful lot in Chagrin. I'm really struggling with practical difficulty on this. I understand that what you want to do is laid out with so much thought and engineering, and I just can't find a practical difficulty measure here. I didn't hear anything, besides this is the style we want to go with. And you have it's kind of ironic because you have the biggest lot in all of downtown, and you could do a lot of different things and have a lot of different options that don't require a potting and garden shed and a wall and all these other things that create some of the variances needed. And I always try to stick with the Duncan factors that we have to go with, and I just don't feel, besides desirable look and feel, that there's some choices to be made here that would reduce some of the variances, and for those reasons, I'm voting no.
Frick,
Rachel stole a lot of my thunder. I too, well, first of all, I know this house. I've been to many wonderful Christmas parties many years ago in the house. It's absolutely a spectacular house. It's a spectacular property. I think everything that you're doing looks absolutely first rate and exceptional, extraordinary. From a practical standpoint, practical difficulty that we typically face is someone has a dilapidated 1-car garage and they want to make it into a 2-car garage. Clearly what we're looking at here are first world, so-called first world issues. I guess I come at it a little differently than Rachel in the sense that, that being said, and I know I have voted no on aesthetic issues in the past, but I do think while the application fails on a number of the Duncan factors, I think it fails with respect to will the property yield a reasonable return without the variance? Absolutely it will. Is the variance substantial? I do believe some of them are substantial. Can the property owner's predicament feasibly be obviated through some other method? I agree. I'm no landscape expert or architectural expert, but that is a huge lot that could be done. I imagine in a number of spectacularly beautiful ways. What you're proposing is spectacular. But what I ultimately conclude is A, the ARB was unanimous in its approval. B, there have been no objections from the neighbors. C, I think that the neighborhood will be, one of the factors is the essential character of the neighborhood. I think the neighborhood will be enhanced by such a beautiful series of structures. So ultimately, I have great difficulty with this, but I view based on the impact of the neighborhood, the ARB unanimous approval, no objection from the neighborhood, I would vote yes, but I do so with significant difficulty.
Holden,
Sorry, wasn't unmuting. Well, I agree with what everybody said so far. To me, this is, it's 4 different variances. Some are pretty easy to grant and some aren't. As far as the accessory structures, I think overall you are reducing the amount of coverage. So I think that in my mind is you meet all the Duncan factors or most of them. And so I'd vote yes for that. The garage size, you're making it smaller, which is also helping your accessory structure coverage. So I would vote yes for that one. The fence, it's 1 foot taller than our code allows. I don't think that's a major variance. But as far as the distance to the rear yard setback, our code talks about, because this is a rear lot on a street, that the neighbors, that's their front yard, that all of the structures have to be 20 feet behind the average of their front yard setbacks. I think this is for a reason. I think neighbors don't want, our code shows that neighbors wouldn't want a garage next to them. So I do think this is kind of the reason our code is in there, the reason there is a 20-foot setback. I do, of course, think this is very beautiful, and this will increase the aesthetic of the neighborhood. This is not just an ugly garage that's going there. So this one I have a really hard time with, but I guess looking at all the Duncan factors, this I guess all the good does still outweigh the bad, so I would vote aye. Yes.
and Kramer.
I would vote aye for the reasons stated. I'm compelled by the fact that there aren't neighbors that are protesting and that the ARB enthusiastically supported the project, and that the applicant also has made some efforts to reduce the scale or the amount of variances in terms of the actual setbacks and some of the lot coverage has been reduced. So I agree that certainly this is not we have to replace something that's falling down. This is an enhancement to a property, but looking at the overall project and the requests that have been made, I would vote aye for the reasons stated.
Okay, so that means that your request for a variance is passed 4-1. What that means is council, 3 members of council can petition council within 15 days of this decision to rehear this matter at a council meeting. Those are not often, there haven't been many of those that have occurred. I can't speak. I have no idea whether members of council would do that or not. I suspect it would be unlikely with a 4-1 decision, but just know what all this means is at about 15 days, if not exactly 15 days, if there's been no further action to council, you'll hear from Rob and let you know that the variances are in full effect at that point. So you have to wait 15 days, I guess is what all that means. Okay, questions from the applicant on that?
No, I don't have any questions.
No.
Okay. Thank you all. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
And with that, we're ready to move into the second issue.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me get my things together here first. Excuse me. Okay, up next is all right.
Stand by. Let me load everything up here.
Okay, good. I'm fumbling around as well, so. Okay, Rob, you're up. You're ready there?
Give me 1 second.
Yeah,
Finishing that
I'm-
here. See what I got here. Just making sure I'm not, okay, I don't need that. Okay, I think we can start off here.
All right, so before us now is the second application we're going to hear tonight. It's the applicant is Linda Fox. The address is 65 Church Street. So Rob, if you could take it from here and give us the background in this, please.
Sure. This is a residential structure in the R150 zoning district, permanent parcel number 932-01032. It's proposed alterations to the rear of the structure, enclosing a 3-season room and then adding a small bump out to one of the rear facing rooms. There's one variance required, that's to 1145-02B, additions to non-conforming buildings and structures. This house, as it sits now, encroaches into the rear yard a total of 14 feet and 9 inches into the 30-foot required rear yard. And the lot size is 925 square feet under the minimum required 6,000 square foot for a lot in the zoning district. They received preliminary approval from ARB on February 18th, 2020. And here's the marked up plans. Actually, if I go to the preliminary, this circled area shows the 2 walls of the back corner of the house that are now screened in, that are going to, or they're proposed to be made part of the solid part of the house for year-round use. And here's the detail of where the bump out section will be located for that rear bedroom.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Sorry, can I just clarify really quickly? Is the variance for the lot coverage? sorry, for the size of the lot, it's just non-conforming, or is it for a rear setback?
It's for the additions to a non-conforming structure.
So it's just
And-
an existing non-conforming structure, but
Right.
do they meet the rear setback?
Well, they don't as far as the building as it sits now. The proposed alterations do not extend any further past the existing house now. So when you see where my cursor is now, that's the existing rear wall of the house. Right now, there is a screened-in area the applicant can describe with more detail, that they're enclosing that at the same level as the back wall. And then the bump out for the rear bedroom will actually be under the existing rear setback for that wall of the house. But they are considered alterations to a non-conforming structure.
Okay.
Christie, I don't know if anyone else saw, I assume you did, that Phil Kepf needs to be added.
Yes, Dale, are you ready to swear in Phil?
Yeah, let's see who else along with Phil would be speaking
I
on
have
that.
two people, well, I have two Linda Foxes on the line, the homeowner, I assume, so I can promote Phil and both of the Linda Fox identifiers since they're on the project.
Okay,
Doing so now.
I see Phil. Phil, can
If
you,
there are any other attendees representing this project, please use the raise your hand function in the Zoom platform.
Phil and Linda, can you open up your video so we can see?
The one I used to see.
I'm sending them messages for video and sound.
I didn't get anything.
Hello.
Like,
I see Phil now.
Well, this is me. I don't know.
I've invited the Foxes to speak and turn on their video. It does not appear they wish to. Phil, we can't hear you. You're still muted.
Hello?
Hello?
There you are.
Oh,
We can hear you.
thank you.
Phil, are either of the Foxes planning on speaking?
Oh, it's only one, and it's Linda. I
Yeah,
don't know why she's on two. Linda, are you there?
yes, I am. Hi, Phil.
Hi. So she's got voice but no video.
Okay.
Okay,
that's
so I'm going to ask each of you to raise your right hand.
okay.
And do you solemnly swear that the testimony you'll give before the zoning board of appeals will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Well, help me God.
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
I don't know if the applicants were on the call earlier when I sort of gave the how we do this, and just were you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So let's proceed. You're up. It's your presentation.
Okay. Linda purchased this house knowing it was a very tiny little house but she wanted to be in the village, and and she lives alone. So she took this project on and has been thinking about what she wanted to do and what she needed to kind of make single floor living. There's a small bedroom on the first floor that's existing, and there's a small closet underneath the stairs that go up to the second floor bedrooms. So we first, we talked about, how do we accomplish getting just a little bit more closet space, but save the light that's coming in from the east. That's the eastern elevation into that bedroom. And the way to do that was to either hang or put a small foundation under this, this bump out. The reason it's not all closet is because we really want to keep some light in that small bedroom. But it will make it a much more functional space. The existing, what we're calling a TV room is not a screened-in porch. It may have originally been a screened-in porch when the garage and porch were added, but it's fully enclosed. It's a 3-season room. What we're choosing to do, or what Linda would like to do, is be able to insulate it, get rid of some of the glass, open the what's now pair of French doors into the kitchen, get rid of that, just to make it a cased opening so that it's a little bit bigger space. It's a tiny little room, but it's a tiny little house, so proportionally it works quite well. When we reviewed these drawings with the ABR, we had how can I mark on this drawing? Where do I go to do that? Hello?
Are you on an iPad or a computer?
I'm on a computer.
Okay, I can't help
Screen
you.
share?
I can help you, Phil. At the very top, there's a green box that says you are viewing Rob's screen. There's a view option with a little arrow. If you select the arrow, you should have an annotate function to select. Do you have that
I don't
option?
see it. I do not see it.
It's right in the middle top of your computer.
Take your cursor up to the very top of the screen. Sometimes it hides the top 2 tabs.
No,
Do you have a touch screen laptop?
screen viewer? No. No, I don't. No. Well, we'll just talk about it because it's pretty simple. If you look at the rear elevation of what is now the enclosed porch, the window that is there, the door is where the door is in the existing porch. The window that I placed was offset from center line of the gable in the rear. That's been moved over.
To be under the gable, directly under the
Yeah,
gable?
so the center line of that window right there, where Rob had his hand on it.
Yep.
The center line of that window is centered on the center view option. So I'm viewing.
Yep.
Yeah, right there. So the window basically is right, it's moved over that way.
Okay.
So that's center line. The other discussion, well, that was primarily what was discussed. I represented, I have drawings ready to go back to the ABR where we are considering a window on this elevation. Linda would prefer that it not be there. That's where the couch is going to go. And it's 15 feet from the neighbor's house. So in the ABR's presentation, I have this blank wall or a wall with a window in it that would be the same size as the window on the rear elevation. Other than that, nothing has changed. The reason we're here is because anything we do to this house because it is the lot is under the minimum lot coverage by some 900 feet, I think. And I can tell you from a historical standpoint that it wasn't originally that, originally ran straight through to the alley. And then at some point they took the rear part of this lot and added to the rear part of the lot on the house around the corner on that runs parallel to the alley. So the non-conforming part from a setback happened 50 years before we had zoning. And then when this garage was added, the garage and porch was added, I believe it was in compliance prior to the addition of the garage. So I don't know, it was done in 1990. I don't know whether it went before the Board of Zoning Appeals and they granted them the variance that took it, added another 410 square feet and took it from 24% up to the 32.6% that it is now. But what we have here is we're not encroaching any more than with the bump out than when the rest of the structure already is. It's an addition of 10 square feet to accommodate some closets.
Okay.
Okay.
Phil, is anything else, or is that the extent? Are you ready for questions? Or, and I'm sorry, is the homeowner also speaking? Linda, Ms. Fox?
No.
Okay.
This is a question I don't understand, I'll ask.
Okay, fine. That's fine. Phil, I'm sorry, Phil, is that the extent of the presentation?
Yes.
Board members, any questions? Okay, Christy, is there anybody in the waiting room?
There are no hands raised in the waiting room.
Whether they be for or against or neutral, there's nobody who would like to speak. Is that correct?
There is one call-in listener. I will allow them to speak. And if they choose to, the first thing is to identify yourself with your first and last name. The call-in listener is silent.
Okay.
I've
We're ready
got-
for a motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance requested for 65 Church Street for section 1145.02B, alterations to an existing non-conforming structure. The property currently is under the minimum 6,000 square foot lot, and they are requesting to close in a screen porch as well as bump out a little part of a bedroom in the back. The existing house already is beyond or equal to both of these locations that are being impacted. The property is yielding a reasonable return. It will actually add some feasibility space to a very small and conservative house, and adding a closet to a bedroom for use, as well as converting only a 3-season room to a full-time location usage in the house. The variance is not substantial. It's adding a total of 10 feet to the entire house footprint, and with the bump out, and then the screens just become walls, creating some privacy in the home, but not impacting any other house line towards any lot area. not adversely affect delivery of government services. The property owner purchased this property and is just trying to make best use of all of its space. The predicament cannot be feasibly obviated through other means without just keeping it the way as it is. And the spirit of the zoning would be observed if we approved this variance. For all those reasons, I make this motion.
Rob, I'm sorry, I go out of order. Rob, we didn't receive anything from any of the neighbors, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. So Rachel, there's your motion. Do we have a second?
Second, by Lisa.
Okay, roll call. Rob, please.
Kramer.
I vote aye for the reasons stated. This is a variance just based on the fact, variance request just based on the fact that the lot coverage and the location of the existing house makes it necessary when there's any kind of change to request a variance, and this does not in any way impact the existing lot coverage or and it also meets all of the Duncan factors in terms of character of the neighborhood, delivery of governmental services. There's and feasibly couldn't change this house in any other way. It's a minimal impact on the existing footprint of the house. So for those reasons, I would also vote aye.
Rocky.
So I'm gonna vote to approve this based on the fact that it doesn't really impact any of the Duncan factors, and that this is pretty much the only way to add some usability to the house without a major change to the inside of the house, and the fact that it's not opposed by any of the neighbors, and it's a big tight lot.
Okay. Freshman Johnson.
I vote aye for the reasons stated in the motion.
Frick.
I think this is one of those rare applications that checks every single box for the Duncan factors. So I would vote aye for all the reasons stated in the motion.
And Holdren.
I also vote aye for all the reasons stated in the motion.
Okay, so what that means then, Ms. Fox and Phil, is council has 15 days to take any further action on this. If 3 members of council do not choose to raise this with council, then the application will pass on the 15th day and you'll hear from Rob. So sit tight for 15 days and you'll hear from Rob if there's been no further activity. Okay, any questions on that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining. Okay.
Night, folks.
All right. Next up, our third application is the applicant is Paul Seagot, and this is 17 River Street. Do you need a second, Rob, to pull this one up?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so everyone talk amongst yourselves while we pull it up.
Gail, where are you that it's still light out?
That's a picture of me in Arizona 4 months ago. I'm using it as my background. I can do some other ones.
Fancy.
How about that one?
Ooh, now he's in outer space where we always knew he was from.
Or the Golden Gate Bridge.
There you go.
This one's too weird for me.
You're in the middle of a leaf or something.
This one that I took, it actually has the sun right over a saguaro, but you can't see it because the whole picture doesn't show up on the screen.
That's very cool though.
Yeah.
Just ice water.
And this is my office at home.
Nice picture of your office.
My water had ice in it when we started this. It's now melted. I'm at my parents'.
My lemons have melted.
I'm in my parents' place in the Adirondacks, and it was like 90 degrees today, and there's no air conditioning, and it is hot in here.
Sounds terrible.
Well, the minute we're done here, I'm going in the lake, so it'll be fine. But the ice melted about 3 weeks ago, so the water's about 40 degrees.
Oh my God.
I was gonna say, it's still cold. It'll
Yeah.
feel refreshing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
Okay.
All right, so take it away, Rob. Please give us the background on this application.
Okay, this application is for 17 River Street, property owned by Paul Seagot. It's also commonly known as the former Jekyll's Restaurant property. This is, the building itself is located in the retail business zoning district. And actually, the entire property covers 3 parcel numbers, 932-06047, 48, and 49. And actually, there is a split on the side part of one of the parcels between retail business and central shopping. But all the work that's being proposed here is in the retail business part of the property. The applicant's proposing some window additions, the addition of a garage door on the side facing the patio, and a rear deck extension across the rear of the structure. As you all probably recall from my emails, originally there was the rear deck extension was not part of the original zoning review letter. It was added at a later time and a revised letter was sent out. There is 3 variances that would be required for this project, one of which was just unveiled today as we did further review. The first section is 1145-02B, non-conforming buildings and structures. The existing restaurant building at 17 River is considered non-conforming because it doesn't meet the required front yard and side yard setback distances. So all of the changes, the window additions and garage door and the deck extension are all considered alterations to non-conforming structure. The next variance required would be to section 1151-02, the river buffer or riparian setback buffer distance. That buffer required is set by code is 120 foot from the low water mark of the stream channel. The proposed new rear deck extension is approximately 7 feet from the low water mark of the Chagrin River, which is 113 feet under the required setback distance. The third and final, and I'll show more of that when I show one of the maps. The final zoning code district, or the variance required, would be to section 1151-03, the permitted uses for riparian buffer zone. The use of or expansion of a non-conforming use of a restaurant, while it's allowed in retail business, it's not allowed in the riparian setback. So we felt that after further review that this section may apply. This section was not originally included in our notice that was mailed out to the public and posted publicly. And Dale Markowitz is going to review the options before us on handling that one specific variance out of the 3 required. Do you have any further questions on the initial review? Oh, ARB did provide an approval at May 5th meeting of the proposed project as it's drawn. They were not aware of the latest variance for the use in the riparian buffer, the 1151-03 that was just revealed today.
But they would have seen the additional deck as
Yes,
proposed.
Yes, the plans that I'll be showing here are the ones that were presented at the ARB meeting on May 5th.
Okay. All right, Rob, thank you. So we'll turn at this point to the applicant for presentation.
I have Rick Siegfried. I will promote to a panelist. Are there any other attendees that are presenting or need to be a part of the discussion at this time? If so, please raise your hand through the Zoom platform. Joe, I'm promoting you. There are no other hands raised. So as panelists.
Rick Tootie raised his hand.
Oh, thank you. We will. I'm requesting that they unmute and start their videos.
Okay, there we are.
Okay, I can see Rick Duty, Rick Siegfried, and Joe Riccozzi. If you are able to open up your video camera.
And Rick, if you're not aware you're muted right now, it may be intentional, but I just wanted to let you know.
Thought I was unmuted. Okay, I'm unmuted.
That was me, I think she was talking about.
Right, you're muted now. Now you're unmuted.
I'm not. Okay. Two Ricks. It always gets confusing.
Did we lose Joe Riccozzi? Oh, there he
I'm
is.
here.
Gotcha. Okay. So I would ask each of you to raise your right hand. And if you solemnly swear that the testimony you'll give before the Board of Zoning Appeals will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, say I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, you're
We're up.
free to proceed.
Okay, Rob, are you able to put up the photos of the building the way it exists right now? I'd kind of like to start there.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. And I don't think I can point. How do I get to that pointer tool?
Bottom left.
Rick, are you on a computer or a laptop?
Computer. Well, it's a laptop tied into a big old monitor, so.
Sure. At least on my screen, at the very top, there is a green box that says you're viewing Rob's screen.
Got it.
And then there's a pull down next to view options, and then you can select annotate.
Annotate, perfect. All right. I've annotated on this once or twice. So a couple things we're going to look at. Is this area right here where there used to be this fireplace exists, and then these drop down vinyl sheets. And we're getting rid of all that. The fireplace, there were some construction issues. It was leaking. There was some mold. There was some stuff. It didn't really do much from the outside, and on the inside, it overheated the seats by the bar. And we want to get rid of the vinyl, the often maligned vinyl. So we want to just kind of get that out of there and install windows there, which you'll see when we show you the elevations. And then if we could go down to go to the next photo. Keep going. Well, you go back up one more, I'm sorry. You'll see also, try the circle this time. Yeah, this is the same area. This drop down here, all of these vinyl drop downs in this area in the fireplace are being eliminated, and we're putting glass in. And some of it's being reused and repurposed from inside the restaurant, but this is really the one variance, because this is the part that's up against the street. We're not moving any walls, not changing the essential character of the building, but because it is in a non-conforming area, non-conforming building, to modify it, we have to present to you guys and hopefully gain your approval for doing that. So that's kind of what this is all about. But we think that eliminating that solid piece there and adding glass across here, well, activate the bar inside and outside. It'll just be more effective than having that fireplace there and that vinyl. So if you could go to the next photograph. Keep going. Okay, one more, I think. Right, so on this elevation here, and again, I'll just, what happened? Yeah, let me use the circle again. So these windows here that you're seeing where the vinyl is, that's all being removed. There are going to be 3 overhead garage doors in there. And again, they're overhead doors, but they're very nice overhead doors. They got a nice panel look to them. The architectural board liked them. And we think it's a big improvement over the vinyl drop downs. And that's also because the one out on the end, you probably can't see my cursor, but the one closest to the road is close to the street. Then those also, you guys need to look at those. So that's also part of what we're going to look at is that. And then last but not least, there's a couple more things.
Rick, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just curious. So how will that impact the use of the inside with the garage doors there?
It'll make
Or
it
anything
warmer
that
and
you've talked
fuzzier in
about
the
thus
winter
far?
time. So Wade, what it does is it makes it warmer and friendlier in the winter time when it's cold. It also gives a lot more flexibility, because we got that in between time and we're all Northeast Ohioans, so we know what it's like. So, 2.5 weeks ago it snowed. Today was 90 degrees. But in between, there were some days when you kind of want to be able to have the ability to open, close, open, close. These vinyl drop downs aren't quite as conducive to that. There's going to be some HVAC changes inside as well. So it's going to give us clearer vision, a better looking building, a more sophisticated solution, and more flexibility throughout, the season, so that Rick and his team can adapt to whatever the climate is going on. And we think it's good all the way around. It's a more expensive solution, but it's hopefully going to, help energize the patio and the restaurant and everything that goes along with this place. I mean, we understand that this is an iconic building and we want to improve on it. So one of the other things you'll see is that in this area where I'm drawing sort of a flat circle is the addition of another small deck, so that this glass here is also being changed so that you can get inside and out, and there'll be a deck that you'll see in our drawings being built here, which kind of works in conjunction with what the Village owns, which is where the bench is. And again, it's just another opportunity to open up that bar, experience the river, because we are, after all, Chagrin Falls, and Chagrin Falls is all about the river and the falls. So we've got kind of a lost opportunity there part of the year, and the ability to open that up is going to be really an enhancement to this bar function that's going on here on the east end of the building. So
Rick, other than what you just described with this additional deck, the garage doors are a climate control and not a seating. It won't impact or allow you to have more seating at all. It's just a climate issue more than anything else.
Exactly, Wade. We're one of the, and I guess we might as well just get to it now. It is not anyone's intent here to increase seating. There's a variance, and there's some paperwork and ordinances that run with this property, and we're not going to increase the seating, as we approach, and I hate to say the new normal or whatever it is, but the social distancing and everything that's going on that we all are hating so much. This plan decompresses the interior with some different style banquettes, and the seats are a little more spread out, and that's probably not going to go away anytime soon. So again, what we're really trying to do is just bring the inside out, the outside in, and take more advantage of this fantastic site that's juxtaposed to the river this way, and give the customers, the guests is the real word, right, Rick? The guests, a better opportunity to experience the river and the surroundings and the best that Chagrin Falls has to offer. So if you could go one more picture down. Here you get another view of where this upper deck is going to go. And it's kind of just right in here. It's not very big. It's not big at all. But again, it gives us the opportunity to open this wall up. People can step out there, be in the bar, step out, hear the falls, experience it, and just enjoy the ambiance of everything that is that part of town. And go one more, Rob. Go again. That stairway goes away. That goes away. So if you could come up just a little bit. So what happens with this new deck that we're proposing? And somehow I lost my ability to annotate. There it is. This new deck basically connects this existing deck and this existing deck, and you'll see it better in the drawings. So this is already here. This is already here. We're going to put a new piece in here that's 9 feet wide and connect those two. There's going to be some posts that go down to the ground, which is part of what we need to do to support this. But to the best of our knowledge, we are out of the floodway, out of the floodplain. It will help actually block this view. This is not the best view of this building along the back here. We've got some exposed concrete. You can see these windows that exist. That's where the floor is at. Kind of where the concrete stops and the stone starts. So by putting that deck in there, we're gonna block some of that view, the posts and the cross bracing, we're gonna kind of stop that view into there. The awning that you're gonna see adjacent to the existing frame for the awning is also gonna help kind of break that big facade up. And you can't see my hand gestures, like, because I'm not standing in front of you. I missed that, just so you know. And then there's gonna be a sign also up here, which was originally part of the plan when it became Jekyll's, but it just never happened. So I'm gonna try to keep this moving because it's been a long night for all you guys. But Rob, if you could now go to our drawings, the proposed drawings. So if you sort of zoom in on the deck area there a little bit, the lower level. You're able to zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, is this the the view you want?
Yeah, you know, it's fine. You're good wherever you're at. So this is, well, you just moved me, man. All right.
Sorry,
good.
I'm done.
We're good. It's kind of fun. We're all learning together, right?
Yep.
I'm making boxes I don't need. So this
How many
deck with the
tables would
purple,
go
this-
on that
this-
proposed addition?
Right, this is new. This is what we're proposing. So while we're close to the edge of the river, sort of, we're way up above it, and the property line goes out to the middle of the river, so it's not really a property setback or anything. The area variance and the use variance, I understand it. Rob and I had a talk about that today. We're really asking for the same thing. If you need the area, you need the use, and if you need the use, you need the area. But Dale, we're waiting for you to opine on that and how this is really going to work for us tonight. And then the other new piece of deck is this little tiny bit right here. And again, you can see there's a door that goes out there and some folding glass doors. And it just gives people an opportunity to come out here and stand and have a look while they're at the bar waiting to go to their table or whatever's going on there. So it's just another way to get that ambiance going, because it's probably the best view of the falls in town. And there's a lot of good views of it. But that's what we're trying to capture there. And that is pretty much what it is we're asking for. We hope you agree that it will make the building better. It's a wonderful building. It is very iconic. Everyone knows it. It's classic. And we just want to make it even better as we go through this process. Rick Duty and his group move in and operate this. He's a longtime Chagrin guy, operated out of the village for 15, 18, 20 years. And maybe Rick, you want to step in at this point and say a few words? Can you hear me?
He's muted.
He's muted.
We'll get him there just a sec.
Rick
Okay.
Siegfried, while we're waiting, how many tables do you think will be added on this proposed deck?
So on the lower deck, we've got 4 deuces, and on the upper part, we'll probably put 2 or 3 deuces or a couple of 4s or something. So I don't think we're going to add more than 20 seats. And if you look at what's going on inside, you'll see that it's a lot less compressed, and we'll take those seats out because we know that parking is a very sensitive subject. And I think, Wade, if we can do this work and get the same numbers that Jekyll's used to get when it was full, everybody will be very happy.
So there's no net new capacity being added?
No net seating proposed, no. And we understand that's a fluid thing, but everyone has agreed at this point that we're not looking to add seats. We're looking to make it nicer. It was nice before, don't get me wrong, it's a great place, but we're just trying to, upgrade a little bit.
The new deck is connecting 2 existing decks.
Correct, yes, on the lower level.
Okay.
So everything we've tried to do in this restaurant, as I've said, I think to this group before, this is not a great time to open a restaurant. This is, a lot of people think we're crazy. I've always, we're partnering with Joe and Rick on this from the Hyde Park. They're our partners on this venture. And while we're not significantly changing the restaurant structurally or physically, we are trying to enhance and make everything more about the water and the view. We think that's probably the best selling point of this location, and the best selling point of any restaurant in Chagrin Falls is it's all about the water. And so what we're trying to do is, you can see we put that serpentine booth in there, and those are just two tops facing out that can see the falls. Same goes with along the back perimeter over there by the kitchen. And so everything, and there was a wall there right between the bar and the dining room before that kind of divided the restaurant, and we've removed that wall. We've removed the hostess stand. We got rid of a wine display and just moved the hostess stand over where the wine display is. And we're trying to make it more inviting, which everybody tries to do when they open a restaurant. But the bar was, I think, closed up in the winter with those vinyl drop downs and sort of an unusual configuration that it had before. We tried to simplify it and square it off. We've actually increased the amount of room for our bartenders more than we have for our guests. But the whole and the deck, the upper deck was sort of brought up by my contractor when we started doing the demo here. He said, what you really should think about is a deck here, because on that lower level, because really before, when this restaurant was Jekyll's, you couldn't see the waterfall from the bar. It was very, very difficult. And we hope to change that.
Rick, are you referring to on this diagram the area of stair removal? That's the deck you're talking about?
Yeah,
to enhance.
It's quite small. It's maybe 200 square feet, maybe 250. We could get you that.
Not even, Rick. It's
yeah.
smaller than that. It's about 100.
Yeah, you're right. It's not.
20,
It's more like 15 by 10. You're
yeah,
right.
it's not big.
Now, Rob,
150.
that project there in and of itself does not require a variance?
It's still an alteration to a non-conforming building, so it's still part of the variance.
Wait, if I'm not mistaken, almost this entire building is inside the riparian setback.
So right here, where my cursor is the approximate edge of the water of the river. And I do have here the flood map showing some elevations. The elevations aren't really the question. The question is the water line, and then 120 foot in from that. So that covers the majority of the entire building.
The good news is we're way above the bottom of the river, you know, the water line. So.
And
you're a foot above the floodplain.
Can you go, Rick, can you,
the footer, right.
Rick, can you talk more? I think, you know, the lower deck is concerning to the biggest part of this variance. I mean, turning vinyl into windows and things like that is more of your decision to enclose things and not have a flexibility for outdoor space. But the lower deck and drilling into the side of the river and in the river buffer, and I mean, it's a pretty significant request. We don't get it very often. So, you know, let's talk about the elephant in the room. So
Sure.
Can you talk more about the engineering and what it takes? I mean, I think there's a lot of concern when you start touching environmental issues surrounding the river and the falls area. Can you talk about the?
Yeah, you're not.
Just for reference, this is the existing falls viewing deck that's here. This is the existing lower restaurant deck that's here. And we're closer to the water, like here, we're kind of right on top of it. Now we can go back and look at the photograph too, which would be helpful, because it is really steep here. But the good news is there's a lot of rock down there too. So, yeah, let me erase those.
I can do that.
I'll get rid of them. You can get rid of them quick. So let's see, I'll just draw a line here. Now, our deck is coming right across here. And you can see how far down it goes as we go down the hill to where the river's at. And we're going down with those posts. And I'll catch back up to you here in a second.
Hold on, give me a second.
Oh, we're good. We're good.
I'm just trying to capture the best view here.
Never had this much fun before, Rob. So those posts kind of go right down here, and you'll see it on the elevation, but they're way up above the river, and you can see the rock in here. So what really has to happen is they've got to come down through here and dig this out, and it all gets dug by hand so as not to mess this up too much. It's it's just an interesting point, but the gentleman that's doing the work is the same gentleman who built all the previous decks for Jekyll's earlier and for the village. So he knows his way around the side of the river here, and he knows it's a pain in the neck. And they have
Rick,
to
do
be
you know
careful.
when those other decks were built?
Years ago.
So I want to, I don't know exactly because, and even though we did the Jekyll
building
job, but
burned down 8 years ago, so
Right.
we built
So
within the last 8 years.
let's say 7, because it took about a year with the insurance company. So
Those
this all
decks
got
were built
rebuilt.
when they rebuilt after the fire, after Blake's went away.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Okay. And was the variance Dale or Rod? I don't know, Rod wasn't here then, but I don't think any of us were. Dale, did they have a variance then to do these decks in the riparian buffer?
Harry might know. I wasn't here then either.
Come on, Harry, where's your history?
Is Harry still here?
Harry is here. I do believe, but my memory, I can't remember back because the whole thing with Jekyll's burning down or the restaurant prior to that. I know there was discussion about it, but I don't know for certain if there was a variance granted.
So Harry, I don't, because we were there at the same time, I don't recall that on the back of the building, we had to do much. I know that because we altered the front, we had the same kind of variance we're talking about now for the changes on the front because of the, the proximity of the non-conforming use too close to the road and all that. But this exit existed, the single stair going up to the left side existed, and that lower deck to the right existed.
I could tell you, I believe the Village Falls viewing area number 2 is probably in excess of 20 years old. The people in town might remember more accurately, but I know when we just did some replacement of the materials, it was very evident that the materials were, in excess 15, 20 plus years old, if not more.
Yeah. But we think when this all comes in here, it's going to enhance that area because we're going to block some of those views to it and clean that wall up. And there's not a ton you can do with the vegetation because it's a river, it's wild, and it's just.
And can you explain a little more how you get to that deck? Are you extending the current one there that looped and just extending it all the way across so you could kind of go back and forth, or is there a new entrance coming in?
Absolutely, just connecting the dots, connecting one side to the other.
Oh, it's no wider than the existing.
So the existing one's about 5 feet wide, and we're going to be 9 feet wide. So we're going to come out a little bit more, just so you have the ability to get a small table out there.
Yeah, it'd have to be wider.
Plus a swinging door.
Right. So, but again, that's as much. It's not so much the extra seating out there, which will be nice. It'll be really nice. But by having the deck there, it gives you the ability to, because there's new doors going in there where those windows are. And then when, you're renting that lower level or you're experiencing that lower level and it's a nice day and those doors are open and you just got that sound coming in and the fresh air coming in, and it just really enhances that entire lower level. Kind of makes it the place you really want to be. And that's not why we're not going too crazy. We're not trying to go at 15 or 20 feet, and it just just want a little bit, just kind of open it up and make the river experience better.
If you're down in that basement area now, it pretty much feels like a basement. Whereas the upper floor has a lot of natural light coming through the windows. The lower level doesn't have very much lighting coming in. And it feels pretty basement-like. And we would like to enhance that and do more parties down there and, you know, and make it a better experience for our guests. And so that's the reason for this.
So a little history here at rear deck. Before it was Jekyll's, it was a seed site. And I remember distinctly the ARB chairman was talking about that awning, that he wanted to make that awning seasonal. So I'm going back to 2000, 2001 on that.
I'm sorry, Harry, could you repeat that? He wanted to make the awning what?
Seasonal.
He wanted that awning cover to be seasonal, and the ARB was trying to, you know, make it so it was only a seasonal use, and it didn't fly.
That's because when the rain comes in the summertime is when the guests all run for cover and the dinner goes out over the rail.
Hey, Rob, and Harry, could you talk about the role of the village engineer in all this? What part they would play going forward?
Sure, absolutely. If the variance is granted, the next step in this is to receive detailed construction drawings to show the method in which they plan to connect the new deck extension to the ground and anchor it into the bedrock. All of that information is prepared by a geotechnical engineer and presented to the village engineer, Tim Lannon, who reviews it against our hillside protection ordinance, as well as engineering principles. And he has to sign off on that approval before any construction or any building permits are issued further, or any further permission from the village. So there is a pretty thorough review that's done on that based on our hillside protection ordinance to ensure that anything built in that area is built soundly and structurally correct according to sound engineering principles.
Thank you. To the applicants, if for some reason the board were to vote against the extension of the lower deck, does the rest of the project continue as you've proposed it and consistent with the variances you've requested?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'm a little pregnant here. I have to keep going. I mean, I can't stop. It would be a shame because, you know, I feel like restaurants in the Chagrin Falls area are going to suffer a lot going forward. It's one of the reasons I asked for this. I think a couple of years ago, we had Pinecrest and about 2,000 seats added to the east side, which certainly had an effect on the Chagrin Falls sales of restaurants. My friends who own restaurants there experienced a pretty significant drop. And I think for the city to, you know, I think restaurants are an important part of the community. I'm sure, you know, I'm an optimist. I'm a restaurant guy, you know, so of course I'm going to say that. But for us to be successful, we need to probably do close to 60 or 70,000 a week to make enough money to make this worthwhile, given our payroll structure and with the new sort of the new reset on restaurants being down 40 to 50% based on where we're at, you know, and how quickly it comes back. I'm concerned, honestly. That would give me some pause. I can't really stop in the middle of this. I guess I could just open the first floor and forget about the basement altogether, and try to make pay the bills based on that. I haven't given it much thought, honestly. I think it's we should have been ahead of this more, probably before I came to you and had all this approved, but I didn't. I kind of felt like this made sense for the restaurant. It made sense for the village. I understand there's concerns. But you know, we're not operating just a bar. We're going to be a white tablecloth, polished casual restaurant. And we're going to try to make it one of the nicest restaurants on the east side of Cleveland. We certainly have the location, and we hope to have the food and service. And with the view, you know, our goal is certainly to design a restaurant that would be one of the top 5 restaurants on the east side if we execute well. The restaurant's being designed by my wife, Wendy Berry, who did the building across the street. I think she significantly enhanced the building on the corner, which she put her new design studio in. And we'd like to do the same with this building. We think this building kind of has an 80s or 90s look to it with the way it looks. And we'd like to enhance it and bring it into a fresh new look, kind of like she did across the street. So that's our intent with this project.
Hey, Rob, could you bring up the drawing of the back elevation, the proposed revision to what the photograph we're looking at now?
Was that in a different packet?
That's in the drawings. Yeah, you're in the photographs. You got to get into the drawing packet. There you go. Just kind of come down. So, and you were
This
there.
one?
Go back one. Or down, I think right there. So you can see that what we're proposing there, and the reason I'm bringing this up is that we have, you know, gotten the assistance of a very well-known and structural engineer, Isaac Lewin, who I've worked with for 35 years and Rick's worked with for 20 years. And we've looked at all this in terms of stability and how it works against there and the rock. We don't have a geotech report yet, but we've got some pretty strong opinions from Isaac in the process how to do this. And essentially it's like the rest of it's all built. You know, you bring some posts down, you put concrete sonotubes into the ground until you hit the rock and you secure it against the rock, but then you brace the thing back and forth. So we are very comfortable that physically this thing's not going to be moving around because there's way too much liability in it for all of us if it does. So again, we're replacing those windows with doors. You can see here there is going to be a bit of an awning again just because of the rain issue, but it's going to be significantly structurally sound. I don't know if I said all that right, but you get my meaning. And the idea is to just make that elevation consistent across there. If you remember what the photograph you just looked at was like compared to what this will look like, I hope you would agree that it's a pretty vast improvement across that elevation, which if you're standing on the bridge between Starbucks and Dewey's, you know, the popcorn shop, everybody's looking at this. So we're very particular about it. And we think it's important, and we think that this will be a really good enhancement. So I hope that addresses some of the concern with the extension of the deck. It's really a nice addition to the back of the deck.
So I have one question. The egress that's on the left-hand side of the building, as we're looking at it in this rear, who owns that entire walkway that runs all the way around to the street there? Is that all owned by you guys, or is that owned by shared? How does that whole thing work?
I think, if I can answer it, Rick, I don't have a property line of it. I think we get up to an upper deck, all being on, the stairway is on our level, on our property line. There's an upper deck that sort of is a observation deck, if you will, for 33 West, the office building directly to the south. Is that right? Yes.
West.
To the west. And I'm actually going to rent an office in there. And we signed a lease with Mr. West, who owns that building, to use his parking lot at night or share his parking lot with the other restaurants in the theater. And so I think the upper deck is actually part of his property. They've been great to work with, by the way. We thoroughly enjoyed the relationship.
Right. My recollection is, and I'm going back 8 years when we looked at this, because we had to make sure that proper egress out of the lower level, because there's 3 ways out of there. Exceeds the requirement by 1, but that there's an easement through there. There's an easement across the whole side of that building for access into the kitchen and everything. So that stairway is not going anywhere. That's a required part of the egress system out of the lower level of the restaurant. And I think that's been in place for a long time.
Okay.
But it is
Thank you.
it is going to block the view, that awning that you have, if that, you know, from that point is going to be blocked by your awning towards the falls. So that's why I'm asking the question, who owns that?
No one ever owns a view unless you own the property that the view is from, but I don't think that awning is going to impact it too awful much, because it comes down low and that's a parking lot up there. And then once you're inside the office building, then nothing will be in the way, because the deck won't come out that far.
Okay. Further, thank you for the presentation and for answering our questions thus far. Any other board questions at this point? Okay, Christy, can you see if anyone is in the waiting room, please?
I will check. If anyone is in the waiting room who'd like to speak, please use the raise your hand function on the Zoom platform. I'm going to allow our phone-in listener the opportunity to speak if they would wish. They are remaining silent. We have no speakers at this time.
Okay. Thank you. I guess at this point, we're ready for a motion.
So, Wade, I was gonna make the motion. I think I want to run this by Rob and Dale. What if they feel like a motion? And pretty much the way I'm reading this is there's.
Hey, Jim, would you pause for one moment? Rob stepped away, but he'll be right back.
Okay, well then, this is for a question for Dale. It looks like there's 3 variances for 3 separate projects. You know, one with changing windows, one for the smaller deck, and one for the newer lower deck.
Right, do it in 3, you could do 3 separate motions.
3 separate motions for each of the 3 projects, but each motion will have 3 variances.
I don't know if all 3 have 3 variances. Let's see.
Because they're all, I mean, it's all non-conforming structure. It's all within the 120 foot. Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, the use variance. Oh no, I guess it's all the use variance too.
Not the, let me pull Rob's letter up.
I would have thought that
Where you're
too.
going, I don't know that the window configuration on the front requires anything other than the alteration to a non-conforming use.
Because it's not expanding the use, whereas the deck additions are expanding the use.
The deck addition is expanding, so you got the area variance and the use variance on both of those.
Yeah, I agree with what Rick just said.
So then, Jim, you want to proceed with three separate motions?
Yeah. Yeah, I will. All right, the first motion, I would like to make a motion for the first part of their presentation for changing the windows to doors and granting variances for section 114502B, because this is a non-conforming building. Any alterations need a variance. and also to section 115102, because this entire building is within the 120-foot riparian setback. So I do believe that the property will yield a reasonable return without these variances. I do not feel like these variances are substantial at all. This is more of a aesthetic thing, request. The essential character of the neighborhood would actually be altered in the positive. We'll kind of update the building. The variances would not adversely affect the delivery of government services. The property owner did not purchase the property with knowledge of the zoning restriction, and the owner's predicament cannot be obviated through any other method other than a variance. And the spirit and intent of the zoning requirement would be observed by granting this variance. And, you know, with this specific variance, it's not encroaching any further into any setbacks. And the variance is not based on circumstances that are self-created by the property owner.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second the motion. Rachel Johnson.
Okay, Rob, can you take roll, please?
Sure. Freshman Johnson,
I vote aye for the reasons stated in the motion.
Frick,
I vote aye for the reasons stated in the motion as well.
Holdren.
He made the motion.
Okay. Kramer,
Aye for the reasons stated.
Rocky.
Aye for the reasons stated.
Okay, let's continue then to motion number 2.
All right, so motion number 2 is for the, what I'm gonna call the removal of stair deck. So this is the one that's just at the end, the bar deck, the new bar deck, that's further away from the river. This also motion is for a variance to section 114502, which is because this is a non-conforming building, so it needs a variance to be altered. And 115102 because it's within the 120-foot riparian setback. This one, does this one need a use variance also?
No.
Okay. So I feel that, again, the property will still yield a reasonable return without this variance. I do feel like this variance is substantial, you know, within the river setback, but on the other hand, it's actually, you know, well within the existing building. You know, it's no closer. So, you know, on that stance, I think it's not substantial. The essential character, again, will be altered in the positive. It will not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. And the owner did not purchase the property with the knowledge of the zoning restriction. The property owner's predicament cannot be obviated through any other method other than a variance. And the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed by granting this variance. And the variance is not based on circumstances that are self-created by the property owner.
Okay, motion second of that.
I'll second that, Lisa Kramer.
Thank you. Roll.
Frick,
I vote aye for all the reasons stated in the motion.
Holdren,
Aye.
Kramer,
Aye for all the reasons stated.
Rocky,
Aye for the reasons stated.
Freshman Johnson.
I vote no. I think that we're starting to get really close to setting precedents here. I know that everybody, you know, thinks they want more outdoor space and more, all these decks. It's on the river. Now the popcorn shop comes and says, we want a deck, and Starbucks comes and we want a deck, and everybody around that area in the river starts wanting more and more outdoor space. And I'm worried about really adjusting too many things by setting a precedent here. How can we tell somebody else no if we say yes now and, you know, it's still approved, but I'm going to be very wary of approving more riverside outdoor space and impacting the environmental issue, you know, natural place that has. So I'll vote no.
Okay,
Third motion, Jim?
All right, and the third
Hey,
and
Jim,
final.
let me interrupt you for 1 second.
Sure.
On this one, you could break this into 2 separate parts, but they both would have to be voted on. So it's kind of weird because there's practical difficulty issues and then unnecessary hardship issues tied into this particular variance because it requires the non-conforming expansion as well as the use variance into the river buffer that didn't exist before.
And
So,
the use
so
variance.
I would take them separately and then to analyze them separately.
Okay, and just for clarification, the use variance, you said, and I know I have the reasons in front of me, but you said there is a hardship that has to be proven?
Yeah, in 11-1107, you need to prove that it has to be a literal application of the code would result in an unnecessary hardship that was not self-created, is due to unique conditions existing on the property. The property cannot be used for the purposes for which it was zoned, will not violate the spirit of the planning and zoning code, is the minimum necessary to avoid the unnecessary hardship, and results from special conditions unique to the property being reviewed.
Dale, do we have to check all 6 boxes, or could, like the Duncan factor, do we consider and give weight to any of those, any or all of those 6?
It's like the Duncan factors. You do not have to find that all 6 exist.
Okay.
Can we talk about that for a minute before you guys do that? Would that be appropriate?
Sure.
Okay, this is Rick. We're dealing with an existing building here, so obviously we can't move the building and we can't move the river and we can't change the hillside. So we're just trying to improve the thing. So there is a significant hardship there in that we're inside this river buffer, but we're above the floodway. We're in a part of the river that's not really all that attractive. We can make this better by doing this. And I understand the issue about everybody and their brother wanting a deck, but I think we have some pretty unique circumstances that would be hard for everyone else in the world to copy and say, well, I have exactly what they have, because no one else really does have exactly what we have. So without belaboring it and keeping us all up to midnight, I just wanted to add that in there with respect to hardship.
All right, Rick, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Rob, I had a question. I think you touched on this early on. The use, what is the use now? I mean, I believe you said hiking and.
well, let me go right to the code section under 1150-103. Permitted uses in the riparian buffer include passive recreational uses such as hiking, fishing, etc. And then the only other comment is that you're allowed to remove damaged or diseased trees that are determined to be in imminent danger. That's the only mention of uses permitted in the riparian buffer.
So, Rob, if I could add one more thing, the addition of this deck is going to prevent no one from hiking along that bank or casting a line down into the bottom of the river from there. So, my opinion again.
It might help if everybody understood the intent of the riparian buffer regulations, which are in 1151.01. And I don't know how many of you have access to our code at the moment, but it's to achieve the following objectives: limit impact of land uses on rivers in order to preserve and conserve the quality, purity, clarity, and free-flowing condition of streams, maintain natural water temperatures, preserve aquatic and terrestrial plant and animal habitat, prevent erosion of stream banks, lessen the level of siltation of stream waters, and preserve valuable water resources in the interest of present and future generations.
And thanks, Dale. That's really helpful because I don't think anything we're doing here is going to decrease the water quality or take the use away from somebody and negatively impact anything you just said.
Okay, Jim, so do you think then we'll make, per Dale's instruction or direction, we'll make a motion first as to the use, and if that fails, I guess there's no need to make a second motion. And if it passes, then we move to a motion on the Duncan factors. Do I have that correct, Dale?
You couldn't lose either way. If you'd said to me the exact opposite, I would have said that was fine also.
Right, okay.
All right. So I will, I'd like to make a motion for the use variance 115103, because this newer lower level deck is within the riparian 120-foot setback, and therefore it is changing the use from, as Rob and Dale both read earlier, to a deck for a restaurant. So so there's a few points that are new to us. I'll read off for everybody. Why the need of the variance is not self-created. The applicant is trying to further use the area that they have, the location that they have, and try to take advantage of the beautiful river. So I guess you can argue either way on this one if it's self-created. But I guess the applicant is arguing that it's. I will make the motion in the affirmative also, that the applicant is arguing that it's not self-created. What unique conditions exist on the property that will cause an unnecessary hardship to result? You know, I guess this is more along the lines of, with granting this use variance, will it create any unnecessary hardships? And the applicant is saying it will not. Like Rick just commented, this will not limit hiking, fishing, or anything in that area. Next, the property cannot be used for the purpose for which it is zoned. I don't think that there is access down there, either with the village staircases or this property staircases. All access, I guess, would come from the river. So I don't see that it would be that the property would not be used for the purpose which is it's originally zoned. It'd just be a dual use. And the spirit of the zoning resolution be, how will the spirit of the zoning resolution be observed if the variance is granted? Well, I guess every structure along the river is within the, from Starbucks, the popcorn shop, Mario's, Chuck's, I mean, everywhere along there, everybody's within it. So I guess the spirit of the zoning resolution would be observed if this variance is granted, just by granting it another business in Chagrin. And what special conditions that are unique to the property exist that result in an unnecessary hardship? Well, they obviously can't move the building away or move the deck away from the setback. I think that grants it as a unique property. And that was the last one.
Second,
Is Kramer that seconded?
yep.
Okay. Rocky?
On. There we go. I was unmuting. This is a tough one. As we stated, they can't move the building, but they are asking for us to extend a porch or a deck out over the river or into the river farther than it already exists. And on that note, and trying to stay with, we're trying to conserve the aesthetics and the feel of the village. I'm going to have to vote no, because if we grant this, we are going to have to continually grant variances for any other business that comes along that wants to do this in the future.
Freshman Johnson.
Yeah, I think, proving your practical difficulty is very challenging here. I get that, everybody's looking for outdoor space and deck, and it seems so great. But it's 20 spaces and it's 60 days out of the year that it's, warm enough and not raining. And I really just don't think it changes the whole entire restaurant. It can be very fabulous the way it is. It's been fabulous for a long time. You're going to make some great upgrades. I just don't see how this makes or breaks the whole plan. And it's highly setting precedents for other venues to seek potential over the river hanging type structures. And so because of those reasons, I vote no.
Frick.
Well, a couple things. One, I want to be clear just on the record, I guess, my vote on the previous, the bar deck, if you will, my understanding was, if I'm mistaken, then so be it. But my understanding was we're literally replacing that which is already there. In essence, we're not digging into the hillside at all. So that's was the reason, in part, why I voted in favor of that motion. I too am wrestling with this one. The village takes the riparian setback very seriously, and we are, very serious in protecting our river. That being said, I think and I agree too that 20 spaces does not make or break this project. So I really wrestle, not to get ahead of myself, with practical difficulty. However, I do think an argument can be made that there are indeed unique conditions on this property, and that you already have two decks, or a stairway and an existing deck, that are literally can be joined with 120-foot or whatever the exact distance is section, and can be done so safely, what appears to be safely, and would be opined upon by an engineer, into existing rock beneath it. I don't think the same can be said for Starbucks or the popcorn shop or anything else that literally sits right on the river. So I guess with respect to the use variance request, I would vote aye, and I would do so largely because I believe the conditions are unique on the property with respect to the pre-existing deck that's already there, the topography of the land that exists. So I would vote, and I also note that one of the two of the six standards, there's also number 6, special conditions unique to the property. I'm concerned that every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to want a deck extending out over the river like my colleagues are. However, I think this property and what's already there is unique enough that I would vote yes on the use issue.
Okay, Holdren.
Yeah, I'm going to vote yes. I think what Wade said is an excellent point. I also want to point out that the village viewing deck across the river is lower and closer to the river than this would be. So that also influenced my decision. But yeah, there you have it. I vote yes.
And Kramer.
I'm kind of surprising myself, but I think I'm going to vote yes, because it looks to me like this project completes there was a big gap in what you see from the back of the building. And I think what this will do even though it is, it's in the riparian zone, if we were concerned about the riparian zone, we wouldn't have let the other structures be built. This was a debate we had many years ago. But I think in this instance, what we're doing is connecting what's already there. And I think in terms of any impact on erosion or access to the river, that's a non-issue. And I think it completes the facade of the back of the structure in a way that when you're looking at it from the popcorn shop or from the observation deck, I think it will be an enhancement. And I also think it will be, when we're having to struggle with how you maintain restaurants in an era when I don't even know how people are going to do it going forward. I think it's a real positive to try to make that happen. And I agree with Wade that it's an entirely unique situation when it comes to that structure. So I would vote aye.
Okay, so then I guess that allows us to proceed to a second motion from Jim, which will be on the Duncan factors, the area variance.
No, I said third and final motion. I'm not doing a fourth.
Okay, fine.
All right. Let me, all right, so the fourth and final motion. Again, this is for the new lower deck. I'd like to make a motion to variances 1145-02B because this is a non-conforming building and any alteration needs a variance. And also 1151-02 because it's within the river buffer area. The property will yield, I think we all commented on that, it will yield a reasonable return without this variance. The variance is substantial. It's, well, the whole thing is within the river buffer and it's actually, I believe it was 113 feet within it. So it's only 7 feet away from the river. The essential character of the neighborhood will be substantially altered in the positive. I do agree with Lisa's comments earlier that this will kind of complete the back river view of the building. The delivery of governmental services will not be adversely affected. The property owner purchased the property with the knowledge of the zone. The property owner did not purchase the property with the knowledge of the zoning restriction, and the owner's predicament cannot be obviated through any other method other than a variance, and the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed by granting this variance. And this variance is not based on circumstances that are self-created by the owner.
For a second.
I'll second.
That was Rachel?
Rachel, sorry. Yes, I'll second.
Okay, roll.
All right. Kramer,
Vote aye for the reasons stated. I think it meets the Duncan factors.
Rocky,
Why won't you come off?
Fleming.
There we go. It wouldn't come off mute. I'm gonna have to vote aye for the reasons stated.
Rushman Johnson,
I'll vote no for the same reasons as stated before, just setting precedents and keeping things very conservative here around the river buffer.
Frick,
I think this is unique. I think this motion fails on virtually every factor, every Duncan factor. However, I put a lot of credence in the character of the neighborhood being increased by this project, as well as the pre-existing deck and other issues that have already been decided before our time. I emphasize again, I don't take the riparian issues lightly, and I think this is a highly unique piece of property with a highly unique situation, but I would caution that I think on most factors this fails, but I still, for those reasons, and primarily hanging my hat on essential character of the neighborhood and uniqueness of the property, I would vote aye.
Holdren,
Yeah, I vote aye for the reasons stated.
okay.
Okay, so what this means now is all three aspects of your project have passed BZA, obviously a 3-2 vote as to the rear deck. And if you've been on the previous applications or been listening, you've heard me say that council has 15 days to consider or reconsider what we've done here. They don't have to, and if it takes 3 council persons to raise the issue before at the next meeting of council, they have 15 days to do that, and pretty close to that 15th day, you'll hear from Rob if there's been no further action by council. If that occurs, then your variances will be granted and you're good to go. So you've got to wait 15 days.
Very good, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, we really appreciate your time tonight. And we
Thank
know-
you very much. Yes.
We know this is a hard one, so.
Yeah,
thank
it is. We get it. And we appreciate it because we need all the help we can get right now.
Well, best of luck. We're all rooting for you and every other restaurant in Chagrin to thrive and take off. So best of luck.
Thank you.
Amen. Take care.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay. We're up to our 4th and final application. The applicant is Mr. Greg McCarthy. Property is 36 Olive Street. Rob, when you get situated there, if you can give us the background, I would appreciate it.
Okay,
Ladies
stand
and
by.
Christy, I'm sorry if you needed me a moment ago, the Zoom dropped out my voice, but I'm back. Did you need me to call any, there are no attendees with hands raised from the last project.
Nobody, I'm sorry, say that again. There's nobody for the 4th application?
For the third, no, I'm sorry. My sound dropped out when we concluded the third application.
Okay,
And typically at the end of the third, you were asking if there were any members of the public who wished to
yes.
speak. But there were no hands raised. I just wanted that for the record.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks, Christy.
Sure.
Okay, I believe we're ready to go here. Okay, we all set?
Ready for you, Rob.
Okay, this application is for Mr. and Mrs. Brandon Zagaro, 36 Olive Street. This is in the R150 zoning district, permanent parcel number 932-05032. They're proposing a new front porch alteration and an addition of a dormer to the front of the house as well. This building is, or this house is currently non-conforming, as that it doesn't meet the setback distances as shown in the drawing on your screen, which show the front and rear yard setback boundaries. So they need a variance to section 1145-02B to the zoning code. This matter went before the ARB on May 5th, 2020, and they received final approval for their proposal. And that's what I have.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant ready?
Christie. Stand by.
I have Don and Greg. I'll promote to panelists.
Okay.
Dale, swearing in, please.
Yep, let me see if I can get them on the screen. Let's see, we got,
Are there any other attendees who are speaking on behalf of this project?
Okay.
Brandon, I'll move you in.
okay, Don and Greg are muted. They need to unmute. Okay. Got it. And who was the third one?
Brandon?
Brandon, okay. I don't see Brandon yet, but
Neither do I. Hold on, please. Brandon raised his hand when I asked if he was participating, but he dropped out. Maybe Don or Greg can speak to whether he'll be joining us. There he
Oh,
is.
there's Brandon. Okay.
Hi there. Brandon Zangaro's online. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. There's some scrambling going on. It sounds like the chipmunks are on now.
It did. It sounded exactly like that.
I swear there's no chipmunks over here with me. I'm going to mute myself for the time being to see if this goes away.
Okay. So far we have Don and Greg, right?
And I think Brandon's with us.
Is Brandon the one who's got the chipmunks, or is that Greg?
It's not
think
Brandon,
it's
he's
Greg.
muted. It's Greg or Don.
It's Greg.
Brandon's muted.
Hey, it's Greg.
It's Greg.
Well,
Hi.
That's it.
This is the first. We haven't had this, but let me have it. If I can get both of you to raise your right hands, and Greg, you could mouth the "I do" at the end, and I'll get Don and do you solemnly swear that the testimony you'll give to the Board of Zoning Appeals will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Oh, now we got you. Good. And Don? Did we lose
Brandon's
Don?
on mute.
Oh, there's Don. Who's going to present?
I guess I will, if I'm coming across clear enough.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. A couple things.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt. Who's speaking now?
This is Don Plunkett, the
Don, okay.
architect. A couple things. And I don't know if we have a photo of the old porch, but the old porch had a bunch of closed windows. It kind of looked like a vacation home you'd see on a lake somewhere. And we wanted to keep it more in character with the neighborhood and the community. And the presentation, Rob said we're putting a dormer on. We are, but it's going on the back. The dormer that's there, that's existing, the one that's in the front. And what we've done with the porch is we took part of it and used it. There's a mudroom we added. So we've reduced the porch a little bit. We've opened it up. And then probably our biggest challenge is our steps were on the side elevation, and we've moved them to the front, which probably adds to our non-compliance because we come out further, but we're not any further than the adjacent. I think there's, and it wasn't the next house, but the next two houses are out even further than we are. So we are coming out on the front as opposed to the side. We're making an open porch, adding some columns, trying to give it a little more character. And that's kind of our spiel. I don't know if you have any questions or
Yeah, bear with me for 1 second. Let's
Sure.
see.
Question about this property. Is it two separate lots between this house and the garage, one bedroom house, or was it ever combined?
it's never been combined.
Okay,
And the steps that actually came out the side actually went onto the adjacent property. So
Right, okay.
we're kind of, again, and I don't think the owners decided what they're doing yet. I mean, as
but
far
they
as
own both lots,
They
correct?
own both lots,
It
correct?
was sold together,
Correct.
yes. This is a very unique property because it's really two, but it plays like one. It used to be a rental kind of combination type property. So I don't know. I'm very familiar with the street, but I was just curious. I knew it was sold together. I didn't know if they had actually merged the parcels.
They have not.
Okay.
How far from the front of the house are the new stairs going to stick out? So
They're
how
out
far into the front?
2'9", 3 feet.
3 feet?
Yeah.
And they're, because basically you're not changing the front of the house or how close that's to the street. You're removing the
It's just
windows
as
and,
big. Correct.
yeah, so you're gonna come out 3 feet basically.
Yeah.
And now are you getting rid of the existing concrete walkway and you doing a new walkway out to the sidewalk or?
We will do a new concrete walk out to the sidewalk. Right now, there isn't one. There's a drive that is mostly on the other parcel that we're gonna leave, so they have some place to park the car if they would rent or, rent the garage separately, because it has a suite above the garage. And I think some of that still hasn't been totally decided how that'll work. So, but we wanted to get the steps off of that drive in case we do separate. I mean, I don't know going forward if you could even sell them separately. I don't know how that would work. With those being different, separate parcels right now, so you would think you could, but by moving the steps, we eliminate that issue of having steps on the neighbor's property.
Right. I'm assuming the steps you're making are just standard steps. That's as short as you can make them to get to the height you need to get to go to the existing level of where that house is.
Correct.
Yeah.
Is that accurate? Looks like you're 4 steps up.
Yes, 4 is 5. It's been a while since I've worked on it. 1, 2, I think it's 4 steps up. Yes.
Okay. And Rob, going back to the previous drawing, you had the 2 red lines. Those are the front and back rear set. I mean, the whole house is in a front or rear setback, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any other questions of the board?
Yeah, I just have a quick question, and I might have missed it, but, so I understand what's going on in the front, but is there anything going on in the back, or what's going on in the back of the house?
There's a dormer. We're raising, you can see on the east elevation, that portion. So we have a little more headroom in the bathroom, and we can actually do a tub shower in there.
Is that rear dormer look identical to the front dormer?
Yes, we're keeping it the same pitch as the front dormer, and that's.
But is it
the front one's there?
Is it wider?
Yes.
Okay.
It runs across the entire bath. We're also
Okay.
raising the ceiling in the bedroom, and then we can also, in the back bedroom, we can actually put in an egress window.
And my understanding is the ARB has passed on this. They, I believe it was a unanimous vote.
Yes.
Other questions from the board? Okay, Christy, can you see if there's anybody in the waiting room, please?
I'm checking. There are no hands raised in the waiting room and no call-in attendees.
Okay. Ready for a motion then?
I guess so. That's on me. So we're granting so making a motion for a variance to section 1145.02B. It's a non-conforming structure that's pre-existing. So whether the property in question yields a reasonable return without the variance, yes, but it will be increased, adding the headroom and getting the stairs off the neighbor's property. It's not a substantial variance. The essential character of the neighborhood will stay the same. It will not affect government services. The property owner did state that they knew there was some zoning restrictions when they purchased the property, but in this aspect, there isn't much of a change. The property, it's really not a substantial change to any of the feasibility, and there's not much they could do without the variances. It's in, it upholds the spirit of the zoning requirements. And the circumstances are not self-created.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
Second by Lisa Kramer.
Okay, Lisa, thank you for second. Roll call, please. Rob?
Holdren.
I vote aye for all the reasons stated.
Kramer.
Aye for all the reasons stated.
Rocky.
Aye for the reasons in the motion.
Freshman Johnson.
Aye for the reasons stated in the motion.
Frick.
I would also vote aye for all the reasons in the motion. I think this is sort of a classic one that checks most, if not all, the boxes. So I vote aye.
Okay.
What that means then is you've passed 5-0. Council will have 15 days to reconsider what we've just done. Not likely, but I can't make that commitment. So you'll basically wait 15 days. Shortly thereafter, if nothing has happened at council, you'll hear from Rob, and your variances will be granted and you'll be good to go. So 15 days from now, you'll hopefully be proceeding.
We thank you very much.
All right. Thank you all very much. Good luck to you. Final thought to the board. Is there anything else to come up before us tonight?
I have nothing.
Well, again, I want to thank Christy, Rob, Dale, everybody for all their support during challenging times, but I think it went okay, other than maybe the chipmunks coming on there at the end. But, we pulled it off. So thank you all.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch about our next meeting. We'll see how we do it, whether we do this again or whether we're in person.
Good job, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Good job,
Good night,
Christy.
everybody.
You did great.
Yes.
Thank you.
She's a pro now.
I
Good
know,
job,
she's
everybody.
really good. Nice work.
I
Bye,
was fighting Greg. Greg kept unmuting and I kept muting, and he and I were mute fighting.
guys.
Christy, thank you. Thanks for pulling us through.
Have a great night, you guys.
Yeah, good night, everybody.
You too. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.